Hi everyone, I'm Shaylin here with Reedsy. Today we're going to be talking about MFAs and whether or not you need an MFA. Now, of course, no one needs an MFA. There are plenty of published authors who don't have MFAs. It's not a requirement, but it is a path that a lot of writers are curious about and wonder if it's right for them and are maybe considering. So today in this video, I'm going to give you 3 good reasons to get your MFA and 3 not so good reasons to get your MFA. This is a follow-up to our video on writing degrees, where I answered a bunch of commonly asked questions about writing degrees. So we're going to start with the bad reasons so we can end this on a high note. The first not so great reason to get your MFA is because you think it'll make you a real writer. A lot of writers kind of want that seal of approval, you know? They want to feel kind of validated and feel like if they get an MFA, they will be a real writer. Well, I have news for you. You're already a real writer, no matter what degree or qualification you have. All you need to do to be a real writer is to write. There are plenty of successful published authors who do not have their MFAs. So if you feel like you just want your MFA, kind of so you'll feel validated, that's not a great reason to get it. After all, you will be paying quite a lot of money to get something that you don't really need. It's validation that you already have inherently. You don't need an MFA to give you that. Now, one con for an MFA is if it just wouldn't be worth the debt. It's really important to talk about the financial aspect of an MFA when we're talking about them because they are expensive. And I can't give you a number because it depends on the country and the school. So if you're interested in MFA programs, just look up the tuition for those programs. That information should all be publicly available. And I remember the first time I looked up the cost of MFAs, my jaw dropped a little. I was like, it costs how much? If you're paying full tuition for your MFA and you have to take out loans to do that, it's probably not a good deal. As much as those numbers are really, really high, most MFA students aren't paying that amount. They're getting some amount of scholarship or bursary assistance from the university, some even entirely. I was told by a professor once when I was asking about MFAs that unless you're basically getting almost the entire thing covered by the university, it's not a good deal. You shouldn't be going into debt for your MFA. So as much as those numbers are huge, it's probably not worth it if you actually have to pay those numbers. I mean, maybe you've got a lot of money sitting around, in which case, do with it what you will. If you're struggling to pay tuition, you probably won't get much out of the program, certainly not as much as you would get out of it if you had the freedom to just write and immerse in your studies. If that debt is going to follow you for years, maybe decades, it probably isn't worth it. This might be something where you have to apply to MFAs, see how much scholarship assistance you get, and then make your decision. But if you're not getting significant scholarship assistance, it probably isn't worth it. And finally, it's probably not a good idea to get an MFA if you're not in a stable and confident place with your writing right now. MFAs won't give you confidence. In fact, they can actually be a huge knock on your confidence. Confidence is something that most writers struggle with at some point. And I wouldn't recommend going into an MFA or really any academic writing program if you're currently very insecure about your writing. Getting graded on your art can be very difficult emotionally, and it can be a big knock on your confidence. You won't magically become confident just because you have an MFA. In fact, a lot of writers go into MFAs not really just ready for them, and they end up quitting writing entirely because the workload is so intense. It's intense to be graded and critiqued on your art in that way. And so unless you're going in with that confidence already, it's probably not a good idea. If you want to do an MFA eventually, I would work on getting to a more stable place with your confidence first before you go to do your MFA, because it won't help, it'll probably hurt a lot more. So let's talk about some good reasons to get your MFA. The first one is if you want to work in academia. If you want to work in academia and be a writing professor, you will need your MFA. There aren't really PhDs in writing, so you can be a professor and teach at the university level with just an MFA. I do think they exist, writing PhDs, but they're very, very rare. The vast majority of writing professors only have their MFA because it's kind of as high as the writing discipline goes. So believe it or not, yes, there are career paths where having an MFA is actually a requirement, and that's if you want to teach writing at the university level. The second good reason to get an MFA is if you want guidance for a specific project. When you're doing your MFA, you'll usually have a thesis project. You don't need to get an MFA, of course, to have a good manuscript. You could work with a professional editor if you want guidance. But sometimes there are specific projects that just work well in an academic setting. If you need access to, say, a lot of research and that specific type of mentoring, maybe there's a really specific mentor you want to work with, and if you can get into that program, you'd be able to work with a specific mentor who you really admire and who would be ideal for this project. That's a good reason to get an MFA. It's goal-oriented, it's very specific. You have a specific thing you want to accomplish. If you have a project that's, say, very research-based, and having access to all the things that academia gives you access to in terms of resources for your research, that might be a good reason, for this specific project to want to pursue an MFA. And finally, the last one is just if it's a dream of yours to get your MFA and you think the learning model would benefit you. The truth is, if you've always wanted to get your MFA, if it's something that's always appealed to you, and you think the learning model of a specific program is going to work for you, it's going to make you a better writer, and it's how you want to further your writing journey, then an MFA might be a good option for that. MFAs are a lot of work, they can be very difficult, they can be very costly if you're not getting significant assistance. But if you really look at it and you go, that's all worth it to me, then maybe it's something you want to do for your just development as a writer. Thank you so much for watching. If you've gotten your MFA or if you've considered it and decided not to, I would love to hear about your thoughts and experiences in the comments. And of course, if you want to learn more about writing degrees, I'll redirect you to our video on writing degrees, where I just talked about a ton of common questions about writing degrees, much more in depth. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos from us. We've got new writing, editing, and publishing tips every Tuesday and Friday. Until next time, bye.